Thank you for everybody who is out in the audience today listening to this. We have a great panel of guests for us to hear great things that are happening in Pennsylvania. So this is a Pennsylvania specific showcase, and we're super excited to have guests that are going to come on in just a moment to explain all of the wonderful things that they're doing. So hopefully you can replicate an amazing Grow Your Own program in your state as well. We're going to dive into today's reality, and the fact is that there's 270,000 underqualified teachers, and there's still 55,000 unfilled vacancies. The investment that it takes for to recruit new teachers is very expensive, as we know. And so your return on investment by having a Grow Your Own program right in your community is essential. It is known that 60% of teachers end up teaching within 20 miles of where they went to their own high school. So that tells you people want to stay in their communities, right? We want to stay where we're familiar. And that also helps with making sure that our future teachers are reflecting the communities in which they serve. You grow up in that community, you're embedded in that community, and then you get to serve that community. So it's really a two-pronged approach into saving money and to make sure that our teachers are reflecting the communities in which they serve. Educators Rising is different in that we've been around for a long, long time, but you may have not known. We were originally the Future Teachers of America, Future Educators Association. We rebranded 10 years ago. We just celebrated our 10-year anniversary of rebranding as Educators Rising, and we have 39 state affiliates, and we're working on number 40. So stay tuned for that one. Over 20,000 members. That's 20,000 future potential educators that we could have going into our teacher pipeline. And it's really, really exciting to see these kids doing chapter work and co-curricular work in their middle schools and high schools. And I'll also shout out that one school in Pennsylvania is already thinking about elementary outreach and making sure that our elementary kids know that future educators, there's a place for you. There is a career pathway, and exploring careers in education can be done even in the youngest grades. So thinking about how can you start that and get that momentum going with Educators Rising. The other thing that's really great about Ed Rising that I love is making sure that we're helping students find what they love to do, right? It's finding their calling right in your community. I had several students when I was a teacher of ed profession who wanted to be support workers, or some wanted to be admin, some wanted to job shadow middle school or high school or elementary. There's a place for everyone. We need interpreters. We need cafeteria workers. I had a kid who wanted to be a bus driver. Like, let's go job shadow a bus driver. Let's go down to the bus lot and see what it's all about. They're getting that experience while they're in high school with our clinical-based experience, our work-based learning experience, because we would rather, wouldn't we all rather kids figure out that this is something that they love or not while they're in high school before they invest the time, the money, and the resources at the collegiate level? The other great thing about Ed Rising, and I know Dr. Clayton and his panel will speak to this, as the dual credit opportunities for our kids to graduate earlier with more credits and get them into the field and working. So that's another great asset and benefit for our students, our Ed Rising students. When you come into Ed Rising, and it's a CTE, a career and technical education pathway, and the education and training pathway under CTE courses, there's a lot of different components, right? You have to start the pathway, you have to have the materials for the teacher to teach, but we have all of that for you. You can start a chapter. It's just $10 per student. Teachers are free. All it takes to start a chapter is one teacher and one student. So anybody can be a teacher leader that has the course and the co-curricular components. You can also start an after-school chapter until you get your pathway up and running, but it builds that sense of community. And what we see on the slide is what we like to call our 5 C's. Because we want to have that chapter to build that community where they're then utilizing the curriculum to support their CTE pathway. And eventually, maybe you have your students compete and go to conference, and you can go to your state conference. If you don't have a state conference, your students can automatically qualify to go to the national level. And at the state level, we'll take the top 10 in each category that you offer of a competition. So even if you don't want your students to formally compete, they can still use our competitions that all come with rubrics as project-based assessments throughout the course of the year. So sometimes you think you just want to use it in class, and then the kids get so excited about their competitions and they just wrote a children's literature book. They want to share it and they want to compete. So that's always a great feeling to get some momentum as well. As I did touch on, one of the 5 C's is our curriculum. So if you're starting a pathway and you don't have materials, don't stress the teacher out by having them recreate the wheel, create their own lesson plans, pull away from all of the other things that a CTE program needs. We have the curriculum. It's standards-based. It's aligned to InTask and national board standards. We can crosswalk to your university to make sure that you're getting your dual enrollment standards met. There are so many different areas of this curriculum that I'm obsessed with because I had to write my own 4-year curriculum when I was teaching this pathway. So it's right there, it's ready. They all come with student guided notes, teacher notes. We have an intensive training and a training center that is launching in the future that I'm so excited about, because then teachers can go and explore on their own time. They're all very busy. We don't want to stress them out or add one more thing to their plate. But we're here to take that weight off of you with our training of our curriculum, with our implementation support, monthly coaching calls, one-on-one supports, and thinking about the things that are added to it, like our assessments and our interactive student notebook that are just great additions to your entire CTE program. Now, some of you might be thinking, I don't even have a pathway. I don't even know where to start. I was right there with you. Way back in the early 2000s, I was sent to a pathway conference on how to create a pathway, and a few years later, it did launch. So if you need guidance on how to start a pathway and what you should be thinking about, things that I didn't think about, like scheduling, you have to schedule your courses at times when the elementary schools or the daycares are available to receive your kids for work-based learning. Thinking about parent permission slips, we have all of that for you. So if you're interested, we have a Grow Your Own playbook, and we'll tell you how you can get that as well. So it's a really exciting feature that we're really excited to help you get started with pathways. And now, the stars of the show. I would like to pass the baton to Dr. Chris Clayton, who's going to be joined by those contributing to the work in Pennsylvania so that he can share all of the wonderful things that are going on in Pennsylvania and how they did it so that you can replicate easily in your own state. Dr. Clayton?
Thank you, Lisa. And yeah, I would definitely not put that in past tense at all. We are doing the work on a daily basis, and obviously Abby and Brittany and Mikey and are really the ones doing the work with their students every single day. But we should, I think why this was so essential is really important. Kind of to start with the backstory of how really just when you go back to 23-24 school year, we started with 0 members of Educators Rising statewide. And really kind of started from scratch because of a need that we really have here in the state that is, we're not alone here in Pennsylvania. We certainly have seen an educator shortage emerge across the country. So I think it's important we'll kind of take a look at the backdrop of why this all emerged and how it emerged, and the need, the urgent need it's really filling and trying to fill. And it's really a twofold, which we'll talk about, is the initial supply of kids thinking about becoming an educator and going into the education profession. But then it's also diversifying that group of people as well here in Pennsylvania. And we'll talk about why that was so important. But a big part of this journey started, so I'm a director of education services for the Pennsylvania State Education Association, which is the Pennsylvania arm of NEA. And our members, teachers, we represent 177,000 PSA members. 109,000 of them are classroom teachers. And one of the biggest areas of need they saw was the educator shortage in buildings was massively impacting schools, communities, and educators themselves. And so we really started to look at what can we do about it and how can we substantively start to address that problem. And so ultimately that partnership with Phi Delta Kappa was essential to really start to, at the ground floor, begin to do something about this really pressing issue. And so pretty unique. 1/3 of my role is to serve as the state coordinator for Educators Rising. So I'm employed by PSEA, but 1/3 of what I do is coordinate a Phi Delta Kappa Ed Rising program, and really started to think about statewide, system-wide, how do we refuel and diversify that educator pipeline. And so I also then serve as the director for the student PSEA program, which is our program for college students. enrolled in teacher preparation programs all across state. And last year we had 7,249 student PSA members at over 90 colleges and universities. And then I also work to coordinate our new and early career educator, because once we get them into the field, as many of you know, about 50% of teachers leave in that first 5-year window, research would tell you. So how do we help support them and keep them in? Because attrition is certainly a part of this equation. And so when I think about this issue, I really think about more than all of that stuff, just my role as a parent and how vital having a great teacher in every classroom is for every kid. And I found myself thinking about this issue just a ton as a parent. And it is that such a foundational premise for what we put in place for public education. The old adage, of course, is it takes a village to help raise a child. And what happens when there's not enough people in that village is that sort of question that haunts me. And particularly post-COVID, where we know kids really need those connections with classroom teachers and adults and peers more than ever. And so Pennsylvania, how this emerged, Pennsylvania had been classically a net exporter of teachers for over 100 years. Brittany and Donna and Abby and Mike will all attest to about a decade ago, if you graduated from a Pennsylvania college and were looking for a teaching job, it was incredibly difficult to find one. There would often be hundreds of applicants for any one job. Generally, we produced way more teachers in state than there were vacancies. And so a lot of Pennsylvania teachers would have to leave the state to find that first teaching job and then try and work their way back. Well, what you're looking at here on the screen now is data from the Pennsylvania Department of Education on in-state initial instructional certificates issued. So basically, students graduating from Pennsylvania college and getting that first teaching certificate. And you go back to 2012 or 13, that number was over 16,600. And then you can see what happened over the next decade, including 21, 22 year, which I hope is the nadir, the bottom of that sort of real shortage emerging. But that was 4,220 in-state instructional certificates. So when you look at that decade of, and we could certainly have a whole other webinar on possible reasons and causes and all of that, but the reality is that pipeline was just not being supplied like it had been previously. So this kind of represents the data of, if you take a look at, compared to the 2011-12 school year, this is the percentage decline over the last decade, less certificates than were issued that year. So we've been pretty consistently over 60% less certificates issued than the 2011-12 year. And so that's how our shortage really emerged here in Pennsylvania. And that's really why Grow Your Own and Educators Rising became so essential. What you're looking at here is data of essentially from 2011 to 2023, the difference in certificates issued in different cert areas. Not all cert areas had the same decline, but some of those really high needs areas like special ed or world language or some STEM areas really even had more exacerbated shortages emerge. So it really became and has become a massive issue here in Pennsylvania. Adjacent to that is also we've had a really consistent and pernicious lack of diversity in the Pennsylvania educator workforce. And so with the shortage, there's potentially some opportunity in this space, but let's define what that's look like. If you take the 2019-2020 school year, okay, essentially over half of the schools in Pennsylvania that year employed all a white teaching workforce. Over 37% of the Pennsylvania's 500 school districts, the entire district was an all white teacher workforce. 37% of the districts, the entire district. And there are 67 counties, and that year, 20 counties, the entire county, 20 of the 67 counties, there was all white teachers in that county. We've essentially been a 95%, roughly 94, 95% white teaching workforce here in Pennsylvania pretty consistently for a long time. And you contrast that to the K-12 student population has really diversified over the last 15 years here in Pennsylvania. And so when you look at essentially over here on the left, 2011, this is your breakdown of K-12 student demographics in Pennsylvania. it was about 71% white K-12 student population, right? And you can see by 2021, it was 63%. So the K-12 student population has really diversified over the last decade. Meanwhile, the teacher population has stayed pretty static, about 95% Right now, we have almost a 32-point gap between the percentage of students and their demographic breakdown versus teachers. Essentially, 95% of teachers in Pennsylvania are white, whereas 63% of students are white. That discrepancy is one of, if not the largest in the country, too. So there's some real urgent need here in Pennsylvania for not only the shortage, but then can we have a more representative diversity of that kind of pipeline coming into the profession too? And even in areas like STEM certificates, this is STEM certificates issued over the last decade. And you can see just an incredible decline in STEM fields. I actually took data from the last 2 years and pulled it out and contrasted that to STEM certificates issued in 2010-11. So essentially what you're looking at over here on the right is the dark blue is the number of like tech ed certificates issued 2 years combined, 22, 23, and 23, 24, versus the green is what was issued the 1 year of 2010-11. And as you can see, I'll give you an example. The last 2 years combined, there was 9 and 14 physics certificates issued in the entire state of Pennsylvania, level 1 physics certificates issued, right? And this is an era where our kids need STEM. The E in STEM is engineering, right? And that is I'm the parent of my son was a Minecraft kid his whole childhood. And, really, and now he's a freshman at Alfred State University in New York on his way to becoming an architect. And so I really thought about this just as a STEM parent, right? That our kids not only need teachers, right, but they need kind of the teachers in the right areas and content areas. And all of that has really made this such an urgent need. And we're not alone here in Pennsylvania. What you're looking at here is the change in the number of teacher preparation program enrollees by state when you from 2008-09 to 21-22. And essentially, the darker the red, the steeper the decline. But realistically, we've only had basically less than a handful of states have an increase in people going into the teacher preparation programs. Almost every state has seen a decline of 50% or more over that 13-year span. And you've got some places, that like Oklahoma was close to an 85% decline. Pennsylvania, or 64% decline. And all the surrounding states around us have declined. So we're not unique here in Pennsylvania, but what was really unique is this is a problem that's really rapidly emerged over the last decade that was not even close to an issue a decade ago, and now has become a really significant issue. And I don't think there's any data that represents it bigger than this one. And I know my colleagues here, when they talk about it, will probably address this as well. And some of this depends on the district that you work. But what you're looking at here is the blue line is what we call emergency permits. And that's essentially educators that don't have a proper instructional certificate. So they're being issued an emergency permit so they can go teach in a classroom in a grade level or content area that they don't have the proper instructional certificate. So that's the blue line here. The orange line are proper instructional certificates issued in the state. And so if you go back to 2012-13, that year there were almost 19,000 proper instructional certificates issued. So that means there were educators entering classrooms, over 19,000 of them with all the proper preparation and certification, degrees, etc. And there are about 1,200 entering in an emergency permit situation. This year will be the third year in a row that we have more educators entering classrooms on emergency permits than proper and certificates. And that line is getting bigger and bigger, with blue being more than orange. There's nothing, I think, more staggering and more of a gut punch than when you look at that data. And here's the reality of how that plays out in schools. If you are in a high poverty school, you're basically almost 10 times more likely to have an emergency permitted teacher than a proper instructional certificate teacher. And if you're a student of color, you're about 5.5 times more likely to have that. So it is a fundamental equity issue here in Pennsylvania as well, that our kids in poverty situations or our kids and students of color are often going to more likely have an emergency permanent educator there as well, which further exacerbates inequities that already exist. So it is such a massive paramount issue. And so we really try to think about how do we do something about this? And it's really kind of twofold. How do we start to change the calculus? And what I mean by that is when parents and kids are sitting around a dining room table and they're thinking about what they want to do with their lives and what they want to be when they grow up, and maybe they decide, do I want to be a teacher or an educator? What's the calculus of that? How much student loan debt are they going to have to take out? Do they have a stipend for their student teaching? Do they have a number of credits already done so that college costs them less? How much are they going to make? All of that sort of calculus that goes into that. But also, how do we think about the narrative? So many kids, potentially, maybe if you're a student of color, it's very likely you could go your entire 13-year experience in schools and never see an educator that looks like you. So why would you ever think about becoming that thing? And so there's been a lot of narrative around, and many of us have been a part of that, right? As educators, sometimes we're telling our own kids, even when they say, maybe I want to be a teacher, so many kids have heard the narrative, don't do it. And what we really saw here in Pennsylvania was Educators Rising was an opportunity to start to shift the calculus and the narrative. So we really thought about how do we start to rebuild and refuel this pipeline and diversify it, kind of everything from high school kids exploring becoming educators, supporting them through that college preparation journey, and then keeping them in the field as new and early career. And Educators Rising has been just a linchpin of how do we begin to attract and recruit and diversify essentially the supply of that, having more kids and maybe kids that normally wouldn't have here in Pennsylvania think about becoming educators. And so we started with Educators Rising with 0 members in 2023-24. And I know my colleagues here will attest to that. And we've now built a really growing Educators Rising program here in Pennsylvania across the state. And we'll show you some of that. This is kind of the landing page, psca.org/Educators Rising. And we have a ton of resources and information about all of that there. We've got over 40 now schools and career technical centers that are already using the curriculum. And part of that is the CTE side of things as well. We did not have a CTE pathway until a few years ago for being a K-12 educator. And so PSEA and others got involved in some advocacy efforts to help create that pathway. And I was one of a few people that helped write the task grid for that, and the NOCTI exam, which a NOCTI exam is going to be administered, brand new NOCTI exam, which is the kind of the assessment at the end of the CT pathway, is being administered for the first full time this year. And really excited to see where all that goes. But so many of our CTCs and high schools are using the curriculum to help their students get ready for whether it's the NOCTI exam or the micro-credentials or the assessments at the end. And we're also leveraging the micro-credentials here with partnerships with universities, which has been just a really exciting area of growth and opportunity. The NOCTI exam is brand new and created. It was been created over basically the last few years and is starting this year. It was piloted last year. And then the task grid that you're seeing there on the right, very similar to the standards in the traditional high school classroom. That's in the CTE world. And one of the things I did is I took the Ed Rising curriculum and crosswalked it to the CTE pathway task grid. And essentially, if you're a career and tech center, and I know Abby and Donna and her group will talk about this, it gives you a pretty plug and play solution to how do we make sure our kids are getting what they need from the task grid, the standards, and Ed Rising curriculum gives you essentially all of the you need and a lot more to do that pretty quickly. It is a pretty comprehensive plug and play solution in that way. Let's talk about the university partnerships. That's been really unique here in Pennsylvania. We realize, how do we help kids with that calculus piece? Maybe think about going into the undergraduate teacher preparation program. And so the original model here was for every school district and career and technical center to make individual agreements with every college and university in the state. And we said, if you're going to do it with one, why not do it with all? If you have the same standards, the same task grid, and the same Ed Rising standards for everybody, state and nationwide, and you have the same assessments and the same curriculum, if you're going to make that agreement with one, why not make it with all? So we started working with that. Our first partner was Pennsylvania West University, which was one of our state, what we call PASHI, so our state universities. It's actually the Clarion, California University, and Edinburgh campuses, but they're all Penn West University. And we built an and/or partnership. So essentially, if you are a student in a CTE program and you take the NOCTI exam and pass it, you enroll in Penn West and show them you've got the passing score on the NOCTI, you would have these three classes: Multicultural Ed 2500, Ed Psych 1750, and Early Childhood 1200, done at no cost. They're literally on your transcript. Those three classes, 9 credits, are done. If you're a traditional high school student, like Brittany in her Phoenixville area co-curricular model, then they would have the opportunity to do the micro-credential route. In that case, lesson design, effective classroom leadership, and being involved in curriculum is Multicultural Ed 2500. Learner engagement curriculums, Ed Psych 1750. Collaboration and formative assessment gets you Early Childhood 1200. So it is an incredible opportunity for students to essentially already have college credit done when they walk onto campus, directly aligned to their coursework in high school, that's aligned to the Ed Rising curriculum and assessment outcomes. And it's incredible cost savings and time savings for those students. Our next partner was Slippery Rock University, one of our state institutions. Similar agreement. It's and/or with NOCTI exam, 3 credits, or sorry, 3 classes, 9 credits. Pretty similar model there. And now over just the last 6 weeks, and I know Lisa and others will attest to this, we've had a flurry of new universities coming on board. St. Vincent College is 3 classes, 9 credits. Gannon University up in Erie, 3 classes, 9 credits. And these are private universities, so you're saving 5 figures or more in funds for students in terms of paying for those tuition costs. Mercyhurst up in Erie is 12 credits, 4 classes. Carlow University in Pittsburgh there, 4 classes, 12 credits there. And then brand new as of last week, Point Park University in Pittsburgh, 7 classes, 21 credits, potentially done through NOCTI and/or micro-credentials. So this gives students that are coming through Ed Rising programs, whether it's at the Career and Tech Center, CTE model, or the traditional high school model, already just a ton of options and the ability to save time and money as they think about going in and becoming an educator in that teacher preparation pathway. To talk about the program, how we are statewide, let's start here. We started essentially, as I mentioned, September 1st of 2024, we had 0 members. And then we finished that year with 168. So our very first year that we kind of got up and running, and that was with the CTE pathway and some co-curricular and just some after-school club model even. Very first year, we ended with 168 members. Last year, we finished the year, and the year when we talk about a rising year is September 1 to August 31, right? And then you start over. So important to note, like that 168 didn't carry over, right? We started over. We finished last year with 342 official members from 20 different chapters. And just to kind of update you where we're at right now, as of a few days ago, we are at 448 current members statewide, and I think that number is low. There's probably a number of kids doing Ed Rising in schools that maybe just haven't officially joined from 25 different chapters. So we have really grown pretty rapidly, or continue to grow pretty rapidly across the state. We have official teacher leader members from 45 school districts, career and technical centers, high schools, etc. And you're going to meet a couple here in a second. And we have curriculum agreements from 44 different chapters across the state, all using curriculum pretty flexibly and to meet their needs. We've got everything from, we've got some 4-year programs that are spreading some things out over 4 years, to career and technical center that are doing a 2-year, 720-hour more traditional afternoon model. We to run across the board. We got a whole bunch of different models. This work happening in different ways, but it is really growing and happening. A couple things then too that are we had each of the last couple years a fall conference at Millersville, and our first year was 80 students at the fall conference, and then our first year at the state spring conference was about 100. It was like 112, something like that. And then this last fall, we were at like 204 at the fall conference, and there you're now looking at last year's 2025 state conference. We had 5 Pennsylvania Teachers of the Year giving breakout sessions. We had over 200 high school students at that, all super excited about becoming an educator. And now we are marching towards our 2026 state conference, March 13th, State College. We are, as of this afternoon, 224 already registered. We have 70 different students already registered for competitions as well. So just another great marking point of how the program is growing. And the other thing I would note is the incredible diversity. I would say at the fall conference, and I think my colleagues would attest to this, about half the students that were in attendance at the fall conference were students of color, which is just unprecedented in a typical Pennsylvania educator space. So it does seem to be working. We got more kids and different kinds of kids than we've ever had before thinking about becoming educators. So just really exciting. Now, really to kind of move to the folks that are really doing this work, you're going to meet the team that's from the Career and Technical Ed side, what we call CTC, Career and Technical Center, out at Central Westmoreland CTC. And then you're also going to meet Brittany Ehrenzeller from Brittany I took from your interview on Fox, because Brittany is like a media star at this point, but she's doing a co-curricular traditional high school model out on the eastern side of the state. So let's start with Don and Abby and Mikey, if you want to talk about your program there at Central Westmoreland. And so glad that you guys were able to join and do this today.
Hi, Chris. Thank you. Thanks for inviting us. I'm Abby Cesario. I'm an aspiring educator teacher at Central Westmoreland CTC, and I teach alongside Mikey Christ. We have a CTE model. So we have 10 sending school districts that come to our CTC. Our program is a little different as our classroom is not located at the CTC. We are located at one of our sending districts' elementary schools, which is right across the street. So our classrooms are in an elementary school where our students can walk down the hall and have experience every day. So currently we are teaching juniors and seniors. So we have our junior students come in the morning, and we have our year 2 students, seniors, come in the afternoon. We currently have 26 students from both our AM and our PM sessions. So for our year 1 students, those are our first year students, mostly juniors, but we do have 2 seniors this year. And our students are getting a lot of experiences in the classroom and outside of the classroom. So we start off the year with making sure that they get all their clearances and that they're up to date on what they need to do for professionalism in the classroom. And after they're set, we give they start off with observing at the elementary school that we're located in. And they get, throughout the year, they'll get over 25 hours of experience just in the classroom observing. We do that for the first 2 9 weeks of the year. And then the second 2 9 weeks, we transition them into assisting and picking an area, a subject area, or a grade level, or a teacher that they really connected with. And they go twice a week and assist in the classroom so that they can build relationships with the teachers and the students in that classroom. We also provide other opportunities for our students to work with children at Stanwood Elementary, where we're located. We do 2 times during the school year where our students design and create games and activities and crafts for kindergarten through 2nd grade. So they'll do that once in the fall, and then they just did one here at Valentine's Day. We also did one at Christmas where we invited students that had great cafeteria behavior down to our classrooms, and we were able to have our students work with technology and use that with the students that won for their good behavior in the cafeteria. So we know that technology is one of those areas in education where we need to get more of our students excited about teaching. So thankfully, we were able to secure a PA Smart grant, and we were able to purchase technology to use in our classrooms. So we have things like B-bots, Dash robots, Ozobots, and Finches. And we have taught our students how to use those and design activities and lessons to do with the students at Stanwood. So they've also been including that as well as part of their time. And then because we do a lot with kindergarten through second grade, which a lot of the teachers really want us in, we wanted to branch out to third, fourth, and fifth grade. And because PSSAs are coming up, we do from January to April, and we tutor students in reading and math. So our students are currently tutoring every morning on Mondays and Wednesdays. So we're getting a lot of exposure and experience and hands-on learning right from the start. Our students in our year 2 have already experienced that, and they are learning at a different level. They're getting a practicum experience. So for 3 months, they have a fall practicum where they pick the school, the grade level that they want or subject area, and then we set them up with a mentor teacher, and they go 2 times a week for 2 hours each day for 3 months. And they have assignments that they have to do, and then they're working alongside their mentor teachers and learning. And then they do another one in the spring for another 3 months with a different mentor teacher and a different area and subject that they are wanting to use. So they get over 90 hours of practicum in their year 2. And then another great feature that our CTE model allows us to do is that we take our students on college tours to help them make an informed decision of what they want to do for their future and help them to prepare them and get to see colleges that are close by that have the degrees that they want to continue in with. And then we also do a lot of volunteering because we know as teachers, like the more you get involved, the more you're helping your community, the stronger you have a connection with your schools and your children in your classrooms. So we do a lot of volunteer experiences. We work the youth arts night. We do Read Across America that's coming up. We have Breakfast with Santa that we've done. We had an angel tree where there was a student in our school that needed some things at Christmas time, and our class filled presents under the tree for that family. And we are going to help out with kindergarten registration and screening. So our students are getting a lot of experience, not only in the classroom, but outside of the classroom. Mikey, Donna, if you have anything you want to share, I feel like I just ramble and talk a lot.
I think you covered most of it.
Yeah, I think you did a fantastic job. Just, CTC model is a little bit different than what typical general education school would do, but it's a lot more hands-on exposure, I believe. And I think that Mikey and Abby have done a fantastic job with, continuing the program and making it grow, even though it's only 3 years old.
Yeah, it's incredible. I got to go out right when they were first getting started, and Donna's being modest and not coming on camera, but she's been awesome as administrator, really helping support the work, and it's been really amazing to watch that. Really started with just a few kids at the beginning. I think it was 12 that first year, and it's continued to really grow and thrive. And they've had to navigate a brand new CTE landscape as a part of that, and they've had to deal with our growth pains here in Pennsylvania and at Rising too on our side as I've navigated through it. But it's really neat to also watch it become an incredible support structure for other CTCs. We got a lot of other CTCs reaching out going, how are you guys doing this? You're in year 3. And They've just an incredible collaborative spirit as well, really helping kind of lead the work collegially too. So that's been just really wonderful to see, and they've been incredible partners. We've presented at conferences already together, right, Donna, and some others on a few things, and are continuing to try and kind of share the work. CTE is its own community in some ways too. So it's been really neat to kind of grow that. On the other side of the state, we have, and we kind of wanted to show two sort of different models. Brittany Ehrenzeller is just doing incredible work, and she'll talk about their journey. But they are a traditional high school out about half hour outside of Philly that really kind of just started as an after-school club model, and now have grown into just a real powerhouse chapter. So yeah, Brittany, if you want to share kind of your journey out there at Phoenixville, that'd be great.
Yeah, for sure. Sorry about having to jump scare everyone with that image the whole time that we're discussing this. It's a good choice, Chris. Yeah, but we did. I'm actually, my day job is a Spanish teacher, so I am one of the needed areas for sure. So I kind of see things at different angles and use that to my advantage with the kids that I have on board with Ed Rising. We did start as a club, just an idea. I was tasked by our administration at Phoenixville Area High School. We're just a normal high school, not a CTE program, which is definitely a different vibe from what I understand from my colleagues here. But I started with 4 kids and an idea, and just kind of grew it from there. So the first year that Chris kind of took over as well, I jumped on board. I was just looking for something that fit what I was tasked to create. I stumbled upon Future Teachers of America just Googling things and saw that it was rebranded into Ed Rising, and it was a pipeline program, a grow your own, and it was everything that I was asked to kind of do and find. And I was like, well, let's just become a teacher leader. It's free. So I did that and started poking around a little bit, got in contact with Chris. Like he said, it kind of boomed. So our first year, the first year that it existed in PA as well, we just ran it as an after-school club. So we it's baby steps for sure. I didn't know exactly what I was doing, and we kind of learned together and grew and got into some of the elementary schools. Last year, toward the end of that year, I did ask if we could do Ed Rising as a course because I saw the desire, the need for it from my kids. They were excited about the idea of having that as a program, a curricular program. So I got the green light. I combined the Ed Rising curriculum, which my district blessed us with being able to purchase it for us, which was really cool. With what I thought was going to be a dual enrollment situation kind of fizzled. So that story kind of fizzled out, but that's okay. Ran it last year as an after school club model. That has not died. That still it's keeping on going. But the elective model started last year with my first group. I had 17 kids in an everyday course. A little bit different from the CTE world, I believe, is the fact that I am limited on my time seeing them. I don't have them quite as much, and they're not as involved with like being in a location that might be conducive to doing this a little bit easier. But I had 17 kids last year. I have 11 this year in the class. My club this year is at 46 members, I believe. So, I mean, we definitely have grown. With the club part of it, that's all. I'm a high school teacher, of course. So that's 9 through 12 is welcome to join us for that. But we do things that are outreach to our buildings. We are lucky to have a middle school and an elementary school and early learning center that are walkable to the high school. So we have gone over a total of 3 times now, probably once more before the school year is over, as a group of 46 high school kids infiltrating 19, 20 classrooms over in the elementary and early learning center. Gratefully, those were all volunteered to us. I just shot an email out to the school and said, hey, we want to come over and teach your kids about being thankful and being a good friend and like different SEL topics. So got a list of teachers that wanted to play. I plugged my kids into rooms. They came up with a lesson plan. I let them roll with it. And it's been fun every single time. So these kids are super excited about every single time we get to do that. And this is a almost 50 high school kids that I take over there. So it's kind of crazy. We do a lot of fundraising. The state and national kind of stuff takes a little bit of money. Districts are supportive, but they can only do so much. So we use that as not only a way to get funds for our club, but also it really brings us together. So it's kind of a win-win. We also partner with the schools, HSAs, like their PTO, their parent organization. So we do childcare during their meetings, which is just an informal way of my kids getting to be with younger kids and knowing how they work and what strategies it can take to kind of manage a group of young children. We gained ourselves a decent reputation. We have admin coming to us and asking for help with different meetings. In fact, after this, I'm staying and hopping over to the middle school where we're watching kids for a Spark meeting, like a community enrichment meeting. So we've been asked to do a lot. I think that's because we have built ourselves a little bit of a reputation for being helpful and caring and wanting to contribute. The elective class, on the other hand, I do use the EdRising curriculum pretty much the way it is at this point. I kind of go through the whole thing, the 2 years that are available, and kind of like pick and choose what I want to do. And if I have time at the end of what I've chosen initially, of course, I'll supplement with other things. But lots of other stuff sprinkled in there. So I have taken them to a preschool to observe that level of children. We actually went to Westchester University and observed an early education methods class, and got to kind of shadow them for a day. We've worked with and observed the elementary school and the middle school as well. We keep it in our district for those things. We partner with one of our elementary schools and do math fluency groups. We go over there once a month during our elective course time. So we've partnered with them, and it's a consistent relationship. So the same kids work with the same EdRising kids, and they get to work in a small group and teach them. We've also had lots of guest speakers come and talk during our time during our elective class. I've had somebody come and talk to us about the McKinney-Vento Act and homelessness, keeping it very related to Phoenixville and then bigger to Pennsylvania. I've had the school board president come in and talk about what the role of a school board is. I had our administration team come in and talk about educational leadership and what they do with a non-core area job. Who else? I had our EIB coordinator come in and talk to them about equity, belonging, and inclusion. Chris is actually going to come next week and talk to us about technology and AI in education. So I'm trying to get them everything from as many different people as I can. I will have them write resumes. They're making a portfolio. I will have the director of HR come in and talk about the interview process and what Phoenixville specifically looks for. They're actually guaranteed an interview at Phoenixville for doing this program once they complete their college degrees. So that's kind of fun too. And they're gearing up to do their student teaching placements. They start on March 16th. That was a giant puzzle to put together, asking my 11 kids in my elective course this year where they want to go based on all these observations, finding a teacher that I think would fit best with them, and then making it all happen. So they'll do 10 weeks, Monday, Wednesday, Friday, with a checklist of things that they should accomplish based on all the curricular stuff that we've done. And next year, I'm told that I have 29 kids that want to take the elective course. So we'll see how that shakes out. But I think that's it.
Yeah, so I know John and Lisa, I mean, you can see, and everybody that they're doing incredible work in their school sites, and they're doing it in very different ways, right? Brittany's really calling some things out of a traditional high school model and really working within confines of that, but then really thinking outside of the box and leveraging different resources there. And then, whereas the CTE model, that's kind of its whole world unto itself. And Abby and Mikey and her group are really just doing some incredible things within the CTE confine. But all that to state, like, there were not programs there 2 years ago, basically 2.5 years ago. So they have really just done incredible work launching those programs there, and are indicative of the kinds of things that are happening here in Pennsylvania. And obviously we've talked about why that's so important and so needed here. So it's, I hope we're having a webinar like this in 3 or 4 or 5 more years, and we're no longer talking about the shortage issue anymore. And hopefully there's thousands of level 1 certificates more being issued every year because of this work. It's been really wonderful to kind of get the ball rolling here, and then watch folks like Brittany and Abby and Mikey do their thing with kids. It's just been really, really amazing.
Thank you so much, Chris, and everyone who shared today, because I think the point that we need to take from this is it can work in any location, and it's a CTC, if it's a high school, if you're just starting an after school chapter until you get your CT pathway up and running, there's a place for Ed Rising and all of that. So thank you so much for explaining what you do. And I think I really want to pull out something that Brittany said about getting your HRs involved and getting that automatic interview or that automatic acceptance. That's the true full cycle of grow your own. Like, how do we get you to stay here and fill the needs in our state and our community? And then from both the CTE and from Phoenixville High School, embedding yourself into the community, right? It's those parent-teacher conferences and those community meetings where our kids can be of service. And part of being an educator is that community service and that service-minded. So embedding yourself into the community is clutch, getting your name out there. And then you bring home all of those awards from your state and your national, and you bring that back to your school. And like Chris said, Brittany's been on Fox News. Like,
oh yeah, Brittany is an edu-star here in Pennsylvania, no doubt. I'm sure she is turning bright red as we speak. Yeah. And I would be remiss, both groups have brought their kids to fall conference, state conference, and they went to nationals and brought their group to nationals too. And what's been really neat is they've gotten their kids involved beyond they've gotten them really dialed into their community, but they've also gotten them some exposure of, you're a part of a lot more than just your high school or your school here. You're a part of a statewide and a nationwide movement. And they really created those exposure opportunities. So, their kids realize, like, oh my gosh, I'm a part of a lot more than I ever would have imagined. And that's been really neat to watch them all, take advantage of all that Ed Rising offers beyond the your local community there. Their kids have jumped. They're excited to go to the conferences and the state and the national stuff. So it's been really neat to watch them open those doors for their students too.
yeah, the conferences, and just for anybody out there who is watching this, if you can come to the national conference, I guarantee you it is life-changing. It is inspiring. It will take you through your whole next educational year. It is just amazing to see over 3,500 kids who are like-minded, they're just the kindest, sweetest kids. And they're just so excited to meet kids from other states. Sometimes it's their first time on a plane or out of their own communities, and it's just so great to see. And the one thing I didn't mention earlier is just by becoming an Ed Rising National member with your $15 student dues, you're also eligible for PDK scholarship. So in addition to everything that Chris has done at the Pennsylvania level for dual enrollment credits, and they're getting the cost savings are just amazing. I love that you break those out, because you can really see how much we're saving for children. But then think about, you could also apply for a PDK scholarship, right? And that will add to whatever you might need as well. So John, did you have anything you wanted to wrap up with?
Well, first, I just wanted to thank all of you for joining us and sharing your stories. I can appreciate what it's like to start a new program. And it speaks, I think the success you've seen speaks to your resourcefulness and being able to tap into local resources, being able to access expertise from Chris and others. And I've loaded up the NBC story on my computer, and I'm hoping it doesn't drown me out here on my microphone.
And I would be remiss, Lisa, to that point, John, really quickly, like my student PSA group led some advocacy charge to ultimately, we just got passed last year a student teaching stipend. So our student teachers now get $10,000 stipend during their student teaching, which I know for me would have been life-changing for me and my family during student teaching. And so, there are some things here in terms of that calculus piece, right? When families are sitting around and going, you want to be a teacher, what's that going to cost us, and how are we going to help you get through, the first 3 or 4 months of your professional career where you're not making a salary. In fact, you're paying for tuition. And, if we're helping them get a scholarship, like you talked about, Lisa, and then maybe they have a whole semester or two less of college they have to pay for. That also means they're working a year sooner and earning a salary maybe sooner as well. And then they're getting $10,000 stipend during student teaching. We really are starting to make a difference on the calculus piece side of that too. So, and that's exciting to be able to tell kids like, hey, you're going to be able to have a $10,000 stipend during your student teaching.
Yeah, because for people, I'm sure all of the teachers here on this call, we had to quit our jobs after college during college. And
Yeah, I mean, me and my family barely made it,
Yeah.
I was working part-time while student teaching, and it
Yep.
was incredibly difficult. So, yeah, I'd be remiss if I didn't at least mention that. That is a huge piece that our state, legislators in government have put forth and made that commitment to, because of how significant this issue is. So, for Brittany and their group, and Donna and Mickey and Abby and their group, like they're able to tell those kids too, hey, there is a stipend for you during your student teaching, and that certainly it helps as well.
Absolutely. There are so many great aspects of cost saving, grow your own. I mean, it's a full, true grow your own cycle that's going on in Pennsylvania. And any way we can promote this and share this, and any state that can take any of these pieces and mimic it and to meet the needs of your state, please feel free to reach out to me, to Chris, to anyone on this call. Everyone here has been, working from zero, right? We all started with zero in Pennsylvania, and look at the growth now. So really do not hesitate to reach out to anyone on this call. Email us at community@educatorsrising.org. We put that in the chat as well. If you think of something that sparked your interest, or you're like, I can replicate this in my state, please don't hesitate to reach out. And also, Chris's role at PSEA and his affiliation to the NEA, there's grants available that can help this work move forward. Please reach out if you have any questions, or you have questions for any of the panelists today. We can connect you with Chris or with anyone on the panel. Thank you so much. And thank you to all of the panelists. We're so proud of all the work that's been done in Pennsylvania. And we look forward to, like Chris said, in a couple of years, having a follow-up showcase and seeing the growth there too. So thank you to everybody.
Thank you, everybody.